Well, welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by Advance Auto Parts. We're about halfway there. The project's coming along very nicely. Getting the final torque spec here on the new valve cover. It looks fantastic. I got to tell you, not much to the project. We just kind of have to go in order. We work from the inside out, from the center out. But before we put that new valve cover in place, we had to clean the deck. Now, a lot of today's heads and valve covers are aluminum, so you got to really take care of those surfaces. Resist the temptation to use sandpaper or a cookie or a wire brush, because you actually may damage that aluminum deck, and then it doesn't matter how good your new gasket is, it's still going to leak. So we just used some brake clean, worked it around with a rag, got it good and clean, no fragments down in the valve train, so I feel really good about that. Remember that good high-tech Felpro gasket? It stayed right in place, it went right down on, and it was an obvious fit. I'm telling you, you can feel it when it's askew, it's not quite right. You can also feel it when it goes on right. That went very well. So it calls for 18 foot-pounds of torque. We worked from the center out on our 4 mounting bolts. I feel really good about the torque spec. And the next step was then to use the Proform bracket to relocate the ignition coil packs. We took our time, transferred everything over. I labeled those wires, remember that. And we've got our new spark plug wires in place as well. Now everything's snug, but not tight, because we want those to reside, kind of settle in where they want to be. Proform recommends that you upgrade to the GM 8.1 plug wires. They're a little bit longer than these factory guys. So let's get this final ignition coil pack in. There's the gel, get the clip, just 2 mounting bolts. Proform really couldn't have made this much easier. You get the bracket in place, get it up off that new valve cover. I love the fact we're protecting the paint. I love how it looks, but I really like the fact that we're moving the ignition coil packs up and away from that exhaust manifold heat. So really well engineered system. I'll snug those down in a minute. Little dielectric gel on our new plug wires for contact, moisture protection. Here's another thing I love. We went ahead and got the new AC Delco Iridium plugs. They're going to throw a lot of fire, which we're always looking for power. We're all about firepower. So we've got them in, and I'm going to go ahead and get this guy seated right in here. There's a good connection. Now, I'm going to let that settle down. I'll come back and tighten up all of these ignition coil packs, torque everything down. We'll move on to the other side, and I tell you what, this thing's going to run like a beast. But I feel really good about the ignition upgrades we made and the maintenance we've done, because ignition is critically important. John's got more on that.
The ignition is an important part of the system, Brian. And if you're old as I am, you remember the old distributor ignition system. Well, sit tight. A little later, we'll look at coil on plug, but let's take a look at this one first. Really broken down into 2 different sections. You got the primary section, which is all the small wires, your 12-volt wires going up, and then the secondary section, all the big wires coming over here, firing the high voltage. Could be firing anywhere up to about 50, 60,000 volts. How it works? Well, it's real simple. On a distributor, it's located right here, and I can turn it on and show it to you. If I flick it on, you got a little rotor inside of here. It's spinning around. You got some pickups that are actually developing a spark that's actually delivering it through the cap, and it goes through the cap, and it comes over here, and it fires at the spark plug. Now, what Brian put on is the coils. Now, that's an integral part, because that's going to step up transformer, which steps up to 12 volts all the way up to, like I said, 30, 40, 50,000 volts, and delivers it to the spark plugs. Now, the spark plugs, he said he put iridium in that truck. Now, that's pretty cool, because down here you can see they come in all shapes and sizes. You have long threads, you have short threads, you have fatter diameters, depending on what you're doing. You got platinum, you got iridium, and you got some insulators in there, which determines hot ranges or cold ranges of the spark plugs. Just look in your service manual and pick the one that your car calls for. When you pull them out, it's a good idea to read them. How do you read spark plugs? Well, take a look at this graphic right here. You can see on the top left-hand side, that's a normal spark plug, and we'll just go across the top. Carbon fouling, too much oil in there. Overheating is going to start to eat up that electrode. Pre-ignition, that means it's firing too early. It's going to actually burn up that whole electrode. Oil fouling, your rings could be leaking. Mechanical damage, something got in there. And then over there you see the torch seat or the broken insulator. Just look at them when you pull them out, mark them, and then you can determine what's going on with the cylinder. Now you can also look at the firing pattern. A lot of technicians will do this, and this is some old school technology too, but we have our oscilloscope here from UEI, and this is pretty cool because I can fire it up and I can actually show you what's going on here. And you can see you had an actual fire line right here. That's the spark plug firing, and then there's a burn time, and it goes around and it happens over and over again. Well, if you look at that, you can determine through the different spark plugs what's going on. And take a look at this graphic here as well. It actually shows you a good firing line. The spark plug fires, you got a burn time, your coil oscillations, it goes through, and then what happens? The points close. When the points close or the actual coil collapses, you got that dwell time to where it goes around and fires the spark plug once again. Now that's a good look at a distributor system, but if you're my age, you may have your son sitting right next to you. You will look at coil on plug next, because that's part of our project, RSX Resurrection. We're gonna put some high performance coils on that, and we'll be pulling that in right after break. We'll be back with more Tech Garage right after this.